All right, don't forget about the morning show replay every afternoon from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. only on WMNH.
Don't forget to listen to the replay from 2 to 4.
2 to 4, I think. Then whatever.
Join me, Matt Connarton, weekdays, 4 to 6 p.m. live for a discussion about politics where we put aside labels like liberal and conservative and have a discussion about truth and what's really happening in the world.
Hey everybody, this is Rob Azevedo from Granite State of Mind, reminding you to tune in every Friday night at 6 o'clock for live in-studio performances by some of the very best artists from around the state playing here in studio doing what they do best. And don't forget, rebroadcast times are Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. and Monday and Wednesdays at 7 p.m.
This hour on WMNH is proudly sponsored by CGI Business Solutions, located at 171 Londonderry Turnpike in Hooksett. Serving all your employee benefits planning, design and administration, investment and wealth management, and customized business insurance solutions. They are available at 866-841-4600 or on the web at cgibusinesssolutions.com.
You are listening to WMNHLP, Manchester's radio, broadcasting at 95.3 megahertz frequency modulation from the top of 1000 Elm Street. Our studios are located at 1045 Elm Street and licensed to Manchester Public Television Service in Manchester, New Hampshire, USA.
Have you seen these photos on Facebook? The captions claim they show the Central American migrant caravan burning the American flag on their way to the U.S.-Mexico border. This Facebook post, for instance, was shared well over 20,000 times. It includes 3 photos of supposed migrants burning flags. Yeah, that's not what's happening there. The first photo sure appears to show a man burning an American flag. It doesn't. It shows a man burning a Trump campaign flag. That was in New Mexico in 2016. The second photo is a Getty image taken in London in 2010. People were protesting U.S. Pastor Terry Jones, who had called for an international Burn a Quran Day to coincide with the anniversary of 9/11. The third image is from Reuters. It shows protesters burning an American flag outside the Republican National Convention in 2016. There have been no credible reports of migrants in the caravan burning the American flag. An Associated Press photographer did capture a picture of 2 people burning an American flag in front of the U.S. Embassy in Honduras in mid-October. They reportedly did so in support of the migrant caravan, but the caravan itself was at the Mexico-Guatemala border at the time. The circulating photos are meant to give the impression that the caravan is hostile to the U.S. So far, there's no indication that's the case. Migrants who've talked to reporters on the ground say they're fleeing violence or persecution in their home countries. They want to seek asylum in the U.S.
Rally round the flag, 'tis a very ancient game. Boys and girls, let's fire up your patriotic flame. 'Twill make you oh so proud of the country in which we dwell. America first, the others can go to hell. Rally round the flag, boys, don't question right or wrong. Don't challenge what we're fighting for or kneel during our song. Don't sit down while the president begins to lie and brag. To disagree is treason, oh, so rally round the flag. Old Glory will be flapping when she sees the big parade of soldiers, tanks and guns and bombs so colorfully displayed. Our president is vying to compete with General Kim.
Says who?
It'll give him a great big bone spur 'cause he thinks it's all for him. So rally round the flag, boys, use your outdoor voice. Watch the soldiers brave salute him 'cause they have no choice. Pledge all of your allegiance to the great red, white, and blue. But sport, that's what Donald likes to do. So rally round the flag, boys, rally round the flag.
Says who?
I woke up in the White House. Oh my God, I'm president. I'm so rich and I'm an ass. And there's a wig on my head.
Says who?
I just FaceTime Putin. I told him I'm his biggest fan. Got so much scandal on the front page. Holy build a wall. Ooh, I can tweet so well. Wonder if I can say the N-word. Wait, can I really say the N-word? North Korea. North Korea. In North Korea. North Korea. In North Korea. North Korea. North Korea. North Korea. I woke up in Donald Trump's body. So orange, overweight, and slightly balding. Now I got no choice but to ruin this country. I can't believe that it's Freaky Friday. It's Freaky Friday in Donald Trump's body. I eat pizza the wrong way and I drink water like a widow.
Says who?
Donald Trump, he's lost it up here.
Oh, guys.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. It is that time once again. Matt Connarton, Unleashed in the Afternoon, live on WMNH 95.3 FM, broadcasting from another day of dreary, rainy downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. I must say, I do prefer a bright, sunny downtown Manchester, New Hampshire, but that's all right. That's all right. Add some caffeine, of course. To try to stay perked up during this crummy weather. But welcome, everybody. Of course, we're also streaming at WMNHradio.org. We are on Channel 97 Comcast if you're in the Manchester area. And, of course, we're on Facebook via Facebook Live on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. I already see Jenny in there. Hello. As well as NASCAR Nicey. Alderman Bill Berry is there. Hello. Of course, it is Friday, November 2nd, the year of our Lord, 2018. And the number to call is 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007, anytime within the next 90 minutes or so. Jilletta Jarvis is going to be stopping in, from what I understand, a little bit later in the show. She's been on the show once before. She is the Libertarian candidate for governor of the state of New Hampshire. So look forward to that. NASCAR Nicey is waving at us all. Or at me, or hopefully at us all. He's a friendly guy. Of course, you can also opine in the Facebook live chat if you have anything to say to contribute to the program. But I would love to hear your dulcet tones at 603-250-6007. Trump has apparently walked back his comments from yesterday here about something specific that he said during his speech on immigration, talking about firing on migrants at the border, if they're throwing rocks. He seemed to be saying, and, so often there's this dispute between whether to take Trump literally and not seriously, or whether to take Trump seriously but not literally. NASCAR Nicey says, excellent show yesterday. I did catch the replay last night. Yes, yesterday we had in Kevin Sherman was here with John Hopwood and I, Kevin, with another new project, tentatively titled Mental Health Day, and we played some music. And Nicey and I used to spend a lot of time with Kevin back in the day when Kevin was in a band called Minus Chad. So those were there's some good memories there. But Trump seemed to be saying during his speech that migrants who throw rocks, those rocks will be regarded as rifles. This is what he apparently told the military. So go ahead and, if migrants are throwing rocks, go ahead and shoot them, I guess, which is not typically how how situations like that are handled. So here, I'll play for you the original comment, and then apparently Trump has helpfully clarified some of what he meant. But here's what he said originally during his immigration speech.
The maximum that we can consider that, because they're throwing rocks viciously and violently. You saw that 3 days ago, really hurting the military. We're not going to put up with that. They want to throw rocks at our military fights back. We're going to consider it, and I told them, consider it a rifle. When they throw rocks like they did at the Mexico military and police, I say, consider it a rifle.
So now, does he mean when he says that, consider that they're, if you to consider the rock a rifle, so pretend that they're throwing rifles at you, or pretend that they're shooting at you with rifles? Because, if the inference is, we're supposed to pretend that they're shooting at you with rifles, then obviously you're to shoot back. So this would cause quite the conundrum if, because typically, let's just say in moments of protest in the United States throughout our history, if someone gets carried away, and by the way, no one should ever, no matter how righteous their cause may be, no matter what their position is, no one should ever resort to violence in a protest situation. You shouldn't throw rocks at the police. You shouldn't throw rocks at those with whom you disagree. You shouldn't throw rocks at anybody. You shouldn't be violent with anybody. The moment you resort to violence, no matter what your ideology, no matter where on the political spectrum you're coming from, the moment you resort to violence, you've ceded whatever moral high ground you may have thought that you had, and you've abdicated your argument, your position completely. Now, having said that, though, typically what happens is if protesters are throwing rocks at law enforcement, there may be the use of tear gas or hoses or something. What is typically not done is you don't open fire on them. So when Trump says, well, consider them, let's pretend these rocks are firearms, I think people took that as, okay, so Trump has told the military, if they throw rocks at you, shoot them. And that's a nightmare scenario. I mean, obviously that is not going to work. According to thehill.com, it says here, President Trump today walked back his suggestion that the military would fire on migrants at the border if they throw rocks at U.S. service members. Speaking to reporters at the White House, Trump said the migrants would be arrested and not fired upon by troops. I'm glad he clarified this. He said, quote, they won't have to fire. What I don't want is I don't want these people throwing rocks, unquote. Well, on that we can agree, Mr. President. I don't want them throwing rocks either. Trump said this before leaving for campaign rallies in West Virginia and Indiana. He said, quote, what they did to the Mexican military is a disgrace. If they do that with us, they're going to be arrested for a long time, unquote. Yeah, of course. I have no problem with any of that. Trump made his latest comments one day after saying that U.S. soldiers along the southern border might fire on migrants traveling in a caravan from Central America, remarks that drew widespread backlash from political and military leaders. He said, quote, they want to throw rocks at our military fights back. I told them consider it a rifle, unquote. The president on Friday denied ever saying that he wanted the military to fire on migrants, saying, quote, I didn't say shoot, unquote. Now, technically that's true, but this is one of the issues we have. I mean, he didn't say shoot, right? But this is one of the problems we have with having a president who speaks very loosely and is not precise with his words. Hello to Christian Cunard, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. When you have a president who isn't careful about what he says, you have to speak carefully and precisely, and he doesn't do that. And, I always say, so much of Trump's problems are self-inflicted. Because he speaks loosely, he is not careful, he is imprecise. And then these things come back to bite him. And this is an example. People recoiled in horror because I actually believe him. This is not the same as the situation like when he was talking about, remember after he had that joint press conference with Putin and he said, I have no reason to think the Russians would have meddled in our elections. I meant to say wouldn't. I would have thought that would have been obvious to everybody that that's what I meant. But I guess I have to clarify it for all you dummies. I meant wouldn't when I said would. And he was clearly lying. He was completely full of crap, right, in that moment. I mean, even the most ardent Trump supporter, you have to admit, he was obviously lying in that moment, okay? But this is not that. And in this, I'm willing to take him at his word on this one. I don't think he literally meant that, because even he must understand you can't just do that. So I don't think he literally meant that he wanted American service members gunning down migrants at the border if they happen to throw rocks. So I think he just meant that they would, again, I'm giving him a lot of benefit of the doubt here, but I think he meant that his instruction to the military was, to be very forceful and to take that threat seriously. If they start throwing rocks, take that threat seriously and deal with it. And those, don't just shrug it off. Oh, they're throwing rocks. That's okay, because it's not okay. And it's not okay, and take that as a serious threat. I think that's what he meant. I'm willing to give him this one. But again, this is why you have to be careful with words. Words matter. I know a lot of people think we're in this era now where words don't matter anymore. Nothing matters, and everyone can just hear what they want to hear and interpret things however they want to interpret them. But words do matter. And that's why typically presidents are very precise in what they say, and Trump is not. And he does, so people were shocked. People were, oh my God, he's told the military, go ahead and shoot migrants if they, and that would be an illegal order anyway. You can't do that. You can't shoot unarmed people. Now, again, I guess we can get into this discussion about, well, if they're throwing rocks, is that, well, yeah, that is dangerous, but you don't just start gunning them down. And so Trump has clarified that, but if he had just the slightest bit of rhetorical discipline, he wouldn't need to constantly be walking things back and clarifying things. And maybe I'm being a little too, maybe I shouldn't be giving him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he really did mean shoot them, and maybe he really did think that was okay. And then maybe somebody really did get in his ear and say, Mr. President, that would be illegal. You cannot have, it's like Fred Bonig from the dailyripple.org. He called into the show the other day. It was either earlier this week or last week. It all gets to be a blur. But he was saying something about, you can't do that legally. The military cannot go to the border and shoot at people who do not have weapons. Now, again, a rock is a weapon if being thrown, but it's not a firearm. That's not to say it's not dangerous, but you can't just do that. You can't just start shooting these people. So maybe somebody got in his ear and said, Mr. President, just so you know, what you said today cannot happen. And if it does happen, we've got a whole new set of problems on our hands. Because can you imagine? It's hard to imagine this ever actually happening, but then a lot of things have happened that are hard to imagine ever happening. But if the American military went to the border and something like that happened, somebody started throwing rocks and our guys started shooting these people, I mean, that's nuts. So
I see Jilletta out in the hallway. You can come in. So anyway, so the president had to kind of walk that back today. It says here too, Trump has sought to make immigration the central issue of next week's midterm election in an effort to drive his core supporters to the polls and save Republican majorities in the House and Senate. He has made a series of hardline proposals, some of which even members of his own party say have gone too far. And of course, there's this whole thing about he's going to end birthright citizenship with an executive order. Hi, Jilletta. Jilletta Jarvis is here. Go ahead and sit down. We can. How much time do you have? I just want to make sure I don't keep you longer. I don't know if you. I mean, you're welcome to stay as long as you want. I just I try to be respectful and not keep someone longer than their because we didn't have a. Go ahead. You can go ahead and pull that mic up because we didn't have a chance to talk ahead of time about your appearance today. But I'm glad you're here. Are you kind of? Is it open ended? Can you just stay till whenever?
We're open today.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. So how is it going? You are, of course, the Libertarian candidate for governor of New Hampshire.
I am, and we're finally hitting the edge. We're at the end of the line.
Now, let me ask you this. So there was a point where there was some sort of, I'm still not clear on exactly what happened here. There was some sort of dispute where it wasn't clear who, because your opponent was Aaron Day, whom I understand you have a very good relationship with, right? Like, there's no acrimony there that I know of, right? It's not.
There is no hatred between us. No.
Yes, it wasn't like the campaign that's going on in Florida.
No, we did not have a hostile campaigning environment.
Right. But there was some sort of thing, right, about ballots or something.
At the primary.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had reports from several different areas around the state of people going into their polling place and the Libertarian ballots not being available at all, or not being on the table.
Yeah.
When you first come in, you see the table with all the different ballots that you can choose from, and the Libertarian ballot was not amongst them. We had some people report that they were underneath all the others, so you couldn't see them unless you asked for them. We had some people report that when they asked for one, the poll taker actually said to them, "Are you sure you want to do that?"
Oh, my God, really? Wow.
Or do you want to take a look at it first? Now, I'm sure that the reason they said that is they were probably in a town where there weren't many Libertarians on that ballot.
Yeah.
We have some towns where the only choices you have are between the gubernatorial candidate and the congressional candidates.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that the person was just thinking that the voter came in and wanted to vote for multiple people and would only get a choice on two options and was trying to be nice.
Yeah.
But it didn't come off that way to the voter.
Right.
And then we had some. There was a problem with the fact that this was the first time in over 20 years that the Libertarian Party has had major party status.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we were a new party in a primary this year, there is an RSA that says when you have a new party that year, then it doesn't matter what you're registered as. You could be registered as a Republican. You could be registered as a Democrat. You could still take the Libertarian ballot during that primary.
Okay.
Because that's the way the RSA works, because it's a new party.
Yeah.
And from what I learned, some of the polling places were not given that training, though the Secretary of State's office says that they did put the training out the week before to everyone, though some polling places said that they did not receive the training. So there's, I'm not sure which is which. I do not believe that it was done out of malice, but it happened all the same. So regardless of what the intent was, there was suppression because people were not given the opportunity that they should have had.
Yeah, and that is frustrating. And I'm an independent, and I try to support third parties as much as I can. And this is so to hear something like this is really disheartening. I remember right after the primary, Aaron was sharing out these memes. Like one of them said something like, "So you got any more of those libertarian ballots or something?" And at the time, I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know the backstory. But it's but I would say, I mean, if you have to, not to make it about assigning blame, but there should be some accountability for this. I mean, it seems like the Secretary of State's office should have maybe monitored this better. I mean,
it definitely goes back to the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah.
There definitely is. This year for voting has not been particularly pleasant for the Secretary of State's office. I mean, we sent out absentee ballots that had people who won their primary not included on it. We had.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't know about that.
Okay, so
oh my God,
the ballots that have been sent out for the general election already that have been sent out to people, either overseas voters or absentee ballots. There were some districts that had people who won their primary who were not included, people who didn't win who were included, people that didn't even have a primary that somehow didn't make it on the ballot. It's just...
I didn't realize this.
A mess this year. And they said, well, I guess the excuse that they told, I think it was the union leader where I was reading this excuse was, there's just so many different wards, it's hard to keep it all straight.
Are you serious?
Are you kidding me?
Wow.
So
that is disgraceful.
I think that someone over there is just tired and doesn't want to have to review the information that's out there before they send it out. It's just there should be spot checks to go over.
Yeah.
Someone should be looking at it and saying, okay, so this is what was supposed to be on this one. Is it there? Yes. Okay, this one's good to go. Or, you're able to have a representative of the Republican Party, a representative of the Democratic Party. You're even allowed to have a representative of the Libertarian Party at the end to make sure that the votes counted were correct when you send it forward.
Yeah.
Why not just call upon the party and say, could you just check to make sure that we have all the names right in your party? Just check your column, make sure it's correct.
Right.
I mean, if someone said to me, if I was a party representative and someone said to me, could you just look through all of the wards, make sure that we have them, I would make sure that we had people dedicated to spend the time looking through each one of them, because I know of all of the people in our party that are running in every district. So it's not like a party couldn't keep track of their own people. We would, I'm sure all of us would be happy to make sure, as a spot checker, to say, yep, this one's correct. Yep, this one's correct for our party. We have signed off on it before you send it out to all the wards or send it out to all of the absentee or overseas voters.
Yeah. Now, people who were affected by this, candidates who were affected by this, is it limited to libertarian candidates?
No, it's not limited.
Okay.
This is across the board.
Wow.
They have there's just a lot of mistakes.
Somebody's got to answer for this. Has anything like this happened before in the state of New Hampshire that you know of?
I do not recall this happening before. But I would say with all of the changes, all of the errors that have happened this year, I know that there are at least 2 different people that are looking for Bill Gardner's job. So this may not be the best year for him to have made these mistakes. I
don't know Bill Gardner. I know that he's very well liked and well respected. I know that he's a Democrat, but most Republicans that I know speak very highly of him. They say he's nonpartisan.
Oh, he's a very nice man. I've met him several times.
He's very well liked, but I have to say this. Based on this, I think he should resign. This is beyond unacceptable. I didn't know about this part. I guess I haven't paid enough attention to. I've been paying attention to like Texas because I'm fascinated with Beto O'Rourke. He might actually take down Ted Cruz, and I didn't realize what was happening in the backyard here.
Yep. And
This
then
is
the other thing
beyond
that was
awful.
going on that is the responsibility of the Secretary of State's office is when, for example, as a candidate, when I go in and say, I want to be a candidate, I have to fill in all that paperwork, pay my money. There is a form, the RSA 415A form, the financial affidavit that shows that you have no conflict of interest
Okay.
to hold your position. Candidates aren't the only one who have to fill this out. It's also the heads of agencies, the heads of departments, people who have decision-making power
Yeah.
in our government. They must prove that there's no conflict of interest before they are able to make decisions on certain things.
Yeah.
So there are hundreds of people that need to fill in these forms. And if you work for the state, you must fill it in every single year.
Okay.
If
Is
you
that
go,
is that a law? Or
it's
is
a law.
That, okay.
Yep. And if you go onto the Secretary of State's website and you look up the financial affidavits, you can find all of the filed financial affidavits.
Yeah.
Well, if you go in and you look me up under candidates for office, you will not find me. As a matter of fact, if you look up every single Libertarian candidate this year, I couldn't find one form filled out for any of us. As a matter of fact, I looked up some
Wow.
Republicans and Democrats, couldn't find them.
Oh,
but
really?
we have to fill in that paper before we can receive our notice saying we're able to. Now, not only that, but if you look up people in the AG's office, if you look up people in DHHS that all have decision-making power,
Mm-hmm.
there are so many of them missing. Now, because of the fact that I know I filled one in, I have a photo on my website of me signing it
Yeah.
in
yeah.
the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah.
I can't tell you whether or not those forms just were never put on the website. So there's a lack of transparency going on, or if
Yeah.
they just were never filled in.
Well, let me ask you, Jilletta, do you know, does the law require that they be put on the website?
It's supposed to be there for transparency. It is
Okay.
a right to know issue. So
Yeah.
and others are. And then
Okay.
you have a list of everyone where they've checked off if the person signed it. And you have a lot of them where the checks just aren't there. There's a list where it says these people are required to sign, but they're not listed as having signed.
Okay.
So either, once again, people aren't doing their job and posting it,
Mm-hmm.
or they just were never signed and they're still out there making decisions, but the statute
Wow.
says that if you don't fill this in, you cannot perform this job.
Right.
So,
That's really bad.
and then I looked up a couple that were actually there to see what the date was that they were assigned, and I saw one issue that bothered me. Now, again, it's probably just an error, but it's an error that creates a problem. There is an individual who is in a top commission job, and he signed his form, and you have to date it when you sign it,
Mhm.
and it's dated in February of this year.
Okay.
And then there's a stamp from the Secretary of State's office that says received on January of this year. So they stamped that they received it prior to when he signed it.
Or he post-dated it.
Well, it was due in January. So either they went, oh, we're just going to say he turned it in on time.
Right.
Or he went, I'm a moron and work in the Department of Education, but can't put a date in correctly, and I'm going to date it after the fact.
Right.
That it's due.
And then they didn't notice, or they noticed and let it slide. Or, in fairness, it is possible that he legitimately made a mistake and just
I don't know,
it
but
happens.
there
I mean, I've written
is a
dates down
discrepancy
wrong, but
there, and that should have been caught
Oh,
before
I
they put it
agree.
in. They should have looked at
Yep.
it and gone, oh, whoops, hold on. This isn't the correct date. Could you
Right.
fix this,
they
please,
should have
before
caught
we...
it. Right.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole point of stamping it,
And
is to
that's
certify
the whole
it.
point of
Right.
stamping it, because
Yeah.
you're stamping it and saying, I'm certifying that this information is now accurate.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not saying that it's the Secretary of State's responsibility to investigate and make sure that everything you claim on that form is correct.
Right.
But I know when I did it, they looked through it and said, okay, you've got everything.
Yeah.
So are they not doing that? I don't know. I'm just saying that I think that a little more oversight needs to be had in that department, where just somebody going through and checking to make sure that they're filing things correctly.
Right.
And in the end, it ends up being Bill Gardner's responsibility because it's his department.
The buck's got to stop with him.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that part of it is troubling, but I'm really, I'm still, not to be stuck on it, but I'm really bothered by the idea that people won primaries and then didn't make it onto the ballot.
Yeah,
and
that's a big problem.
I'm going to say it. He needs to resign over that. I'm serious. Bill Gardner should resign over that. That is beyond unacceptable.
These are, and if you are overseas, you're serving in the military, how closely did you follow whether or not someone won their primary for probate?
Mm-hmm.
You may not even know if it was. You may just assume that ballot is accurate because I would assume my ballot is accurate. That my information must have been wrong. I must have gotten confused as to who won this primary because they're not on the ballot.
Right.
So that's
wow.
Yeah.
I did not realize. So is anyone doing anything? Like, is someone suing the state or anything over this? Or because I imagine there's a lot of people who are pretty furious right now.
I don't know if anyone's suing the state. I do know that those people who were not on the ballot that were supposed to be on the ballot have already gone in. It's like a couple weeks old now because when they started sending out the absentee ballots, then that's when it was noticed by some individuals who saw some of the sample ballots coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody can go in to the Secretary of State's website and look up all the sample ballots for all the towns.
Okay.
So I, of course, started doing that for the Libertarians.
Yeah.
Because, my goodness, we had so many issues already. We want to get them fixed beforehand, and we caught a couple where we were missing. We really don't have that many people, so it's easy for us to check. So I don't know if anyone's suing the state over it. I know that if your votes come back and you miss by this many people, and it ends up finding out that those are the number of absentee ballots that were sent in.
Yeah.
Yes, I can assure you that someone will be suing at that point.
I hope so.
But I think that at this point, people have said, well, fix it, send out corrections to anyone who hasn't sent theirs in yet.
Well, what about
But I know several people
God.
who have sent me messages already saying that they had filled in their absentee ballot and they wanted to tell me that they were voting for me. So I know that they've sent in their absentee ballots already.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So I don't know if they had an opportunity to make sure that they were the correct absentee ballot. And if you are a person who filled in an absentee ballot, how worried are you that you filled in a correct ballot now? I mean, how secure are you in your voting rights right now?
Right. Yeah.
Were you represented? Were you allowed to represent yourself correctly? I don't know. It all depends on which ward you were in.
This is incredible to me. Well, boy. So has Bill Gardner said anything? Has he himself said anything publicly about this?
I don't know. It was his assistant Scanlon who spoke up about it in the interview with the paper that I saw, but it wasn't. I don't think that they got a quote from Bill Gardner himself.
Yeah.
I would assume that he's rather busy at the moment.
Right. No, this is really, that's disgraceful. Wow. I mean, and it's funny too. I would be thinking if it were only libertarians who were being affected, I would probably jump to the conclusion that, it's an that maybe some of this was intentional, that it's an example of, because I always talk about how the system protects itself.
Yeah,
the
no,
two-party
I don't
system.
think that this is a situation of, yes, we were missing some people in a couple different towns.
Yeah.
But I don't think that this was a targeted at a party. I think that this was just mistakes.
Yeah, which is just as bad.
Mistakes.
Yeah.
And no one checked them before sending them out the door.
Yeah.
And that's worse to me, because at least with someone targeting you, then there was intention.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just randomly making mistakes in several different voting districts that affect many of your candidates across the board, then that means that no one's paying attention to what's going on, and that's so much worse.
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. It's funny because so this is something that I would like to see, because Republicans often talk about voter fraud.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I would like to see a lot of Republicans focusing on, and the reason I say that, and everyone should be upset, Republicans, Democrats, etc. The reason I'm kind of singling out Republicans in a way is because I've talked to a lot of Republicans over the years who are constantly talking about voter fraud, but it's or voting irregularities, or whatever term you want to put on this, the scenario that we're in now that you're describing. But these Republicans, they always talk about how, there's people being bussed in from other places who aren't from here, who go in and commit voter fraud, and there's these busloads of undocumented immigrants who get off the bus and go in and they vote for Democrats, and then they go back to wherever. And I don't know how you feel about that. I personally, in an era where everyone has a cell phone that can take pictures and take video, I would love for one of these Republicans who talks about all these people being bussed in, and I'd love for someone to maybe catch some video of this happening, and yet no one ever does. But if they really are concerned, what they need to do, in my opinion, is focus on this. People who win primaries and then get left off a ballot. I mean, everybody should be furious about that. But maybe that's where some of these Republicans, maybe that's where they should be focusing their effort, because this is something you can document. Unlike the busloads of undocumented immigrants who come into the state to vote Democrat and then leave, yet no one can seem to get even so much as a photograph or a video of that happening.
During the primary election, my transmission on my car went out.
Ooh, that's never fun.
And I had to rent a car for the day so I could drive around to all the different polls.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until about halfway through the day, when I was walking back to the car, when I noticed that I had a North Carolina license plate on my car, and I'd been going to every single poll, and I was like, oh no, someone's going to report me.
Yeah, but no, but here's the thing though, they won't, because they don't, they get so upset with all this alleged voter fraud, but they don't bother to snap any photos of anyone's license plate. So
well, the thing is a license plate honestly does not tell you where a person's from. If you had a bus who was doing one of those get out the vote drives where you go around, you pick people up, half the time those buses don't necessarily have your in-state. It's wherever you rented the bus from.
Right, of course.
So a license plate is not going to tell you whether or not the people inside the bus are legal voters.
Yeah.
That's what their identification is for.
Right, exactly, yes.
And the people inside should not be letting them in if their identification shows them as not a voter.
Right, yeah. It sounds like you share my skepticism about the rampant voter fraud. Yeah, and I mean, I think both sides go to too far an extreme with that, actually, because I think
fraud does exist.
Right, it does.
It happens.
Yeah.
And it would be foolish to say that people don't try to game the system
Of
there's
course.
a system to game.
Of course.
But I don't think that we're shipping an entire busloads of
Right.
people. I think that would be easily spotted.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because and this is one of the reasons I'm an independent is because I can't. this is just an example of many examples. It's like they both get it wrong in my view. Democrats act like there's never been a case of voter fraud anywhere, any place, anytime. It just can't possibly happen. But then Republicans act like, no Democrat would ever win any election anywhere ever if it weren't for voter fraud. So it's they both just take these extreme positions. I know we're going to cover some of the same ground that we did the last time you were here, but of course we've been picking up a lot of new listeners along the way, and the election is it's coming right up this Tuesday.
Close.
Yeah. So what is it that made you decide to run for the Libertarian and become the Libertarian nominee for governor?
Well, I've been Libertarian for, I can't even tell you how long, because I grew up believing that our Constitution was here to guarantee me my rights and that no one should take those away from me, and anything more than what the Constitution said was government overreach. And, I was raised by hippies who, I love you, Mom, who believed that it was your responsibility to stand up for yourself and your responsibility to stand up for your family. And I had an aunt, she's still alive. I didn't mean to put it in the past tense. Her name is Carla Howell. She was the Libertarian candidate for governor in Massachusetts who actually fought for marriage equality.
Good for her.
And convinced the Democrats to adopt it. And that's how it became a big thing across the country until it finally became recognized. It was actually the Libertarian Party who stood for it first.
Yep.
Because we believe in that the rights of the minority, which is the rights of the individual. And that's our minority, is each and every single person, because you can't get more of a minority than a single person in a crowd.
Right. Hello to Fred Bonig, by the way, from thedailyripple.org, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. I've always made the civil argument on that, by the way, that if a marriage is a contract between two consenting adults, the government shouldn't have the right to tell any two consenting adults that they can't enter into such contract based on gender.
Well, I think it's foolish for anyone to think that the government has the right to tell you who you're allowed to love.
Yeah.
And because that's what marriage is. It's a civil contract saying, I agree to love you.
Yeah.
Which is foolish that we would think that the government should be able to oversee something as basic as an emotion.
Right.
But we are completely accepting of it now.
Yeah.
We are now at the point where the government has the right to have you pay for the right to live with and love a single individual until you decide to pay to not love that person anymore.
Right, yeah.
And that's what a marriage contract is now.
Do you want to see the government get out of marriage completely? Because that's what I would like to see, ideally.
Marriage was originally a religious thing.
Right.
It was not something that the government had anything to do with until we found out we could make money off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not have a problem with the government stepping back and saying, this is not us. This is not our responsibility.
Yeah.
The only thing that they wanted to jump into it for was for tax purposes. So it's just another way to say, yes, you have the right to be taxed.
Yeah.
So, no, I really don't think the government should be taking part in it at all.
But it's really cool that your aunt, what was her name again?
My aunt Carla Howell.
Carla Howell. Okay, I want to remember that name because that's so she was at the forefront of that.
Oh, yes.
That's amazing. All right. Well, Carla Howell just became a personal hero of mine because I was marriage equality before it was cool to be pro-marriage equality.
So were the libertarians.
Yeah. No, because I actually remember having a conversation about it when I was a kid with my mother. I remember asking my mom, I don't know, I was probably 11 or 12. I was like, why can't gay people get married? And she was like, and my mom was very liberal. She still is. And she was like, well, maybe someday they will be able to.
Yeah, it was actually also the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire specifically that made it so that eminent domain could not be used to have a private company use the government to purchase your property so that they could have it.
Right.
That was the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire that fought that.
Yep. Absolutely.
So we've had a lot of things where we have a history of fighting for the rights of individuals. And the story behind what we did there is wonderful. If anybody ever wants to enjoy watching the Supreme Court get their own. The Libertarians decided, well, what we'll do to prove that this is not a fair practice is we will use all of the tactics that Pfizer used with the courts to steal property, and we're going to use those same arguments to take a Supreme Court justice's home.
Yep, Justice Souter.
And we are going to say we want to build an amusement park there. They had the menu planned out, what they were gonna name everything. They had it down. It was amazing.
Yeah.
That is definitely a story people should look up.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't make sense to me to not hold those principles as the principles that I want to portray.
Right.
So that's why I'm running as a libertarian, because I want to be that person that continues to fight for the rights of the people in this state, every single person. And that includes getting rid of bad laws. That includes making sure that everyone has equal opportunity and equal rights. And the reason that I had to run for governor was because I am just so tired of this crazy interplay between the other two parties where they spend more time blaming each other for not doing something than they do actually trying to get anything done.
Right.
I don't like the flip-flopping of our current governor. I don't feel I can trust him because of that. And he's a very nice man. I've met him, and he's very charming. He's very gregarious. He's got a way of bringing you in and making you trust him, and then you find out he did something completely different than what he just told you, and I have a problem with that.
But you're right, though. He does have certain gifts that he clearly did not inherit from his father. He developed them some other way. Because
those he must have got them from his mother or from a great upbringing. Or from having to deal with being one of many children.
Right,
you have to learn certain skills in order to survive.
By the way, if you're just joining us, we're talking with Jilletta Jarvis. She is the Libertarian candidate for governor here in New Hampshire. And the number is 603-250-6007 if you want to join the conversation. 603-250-6007. You can also chime in on Facebook via Facebook Live. Jenny said agreed. I think she was referring to the eminent domain that issue that you were talking about. Sununu is he's very he seems to be very popular with Democrats as well as Republicans, which definitely again he certainly is not his father.
No, he's definitely not.
His dad was a very polarizing figure. So what now? So you mentioned the flip flopping. What are some examples of that?
Well, regardless of how you feel about the bills specifically, when the SB3 came up and was introduced, there were students that came to him and said, "We don't like this bill. What do you think about it?" And he said, "No, I hate this bill. I don't like it. I won't pass this bill."
What is SB3?
The voter registration bill. And then he passed it. So he said, "I won't pass this." Then he did. Then when it came to cannabis, now.
Well, wait a minute. Wait, Jilletta. I don't want to gloss over this. What did the voter registration bill say exactly?
The voter registration bill was the one that changed being domiciled in New Hampshire to vote to being you must be an inhabitant of New Hampshire to vote. And that word changed for many people, whether or not a student
college
can vote.
Students, yeah.
They're also saying that it creates a barrier for homeless people to be able to vote because they don't actually have a place of inhabitants.
Right. I'd never thought of that part. Yeah.
So there are some issues with the bill, and for the homeless issue, they say, well, they can just use an address of a shelter. But I went down this very road, down Elm Street, and I spoke to every single homeless person on this street, and they said to them, the problem is that they don't get mail. Their mail
Right.
most of the time that's sent to the shelters gets returned to sender, and that includes things like licenses. And we were talking about it because I was asking about finding jobs, and they said the big problem they have is getting their license. Because licenses now get mailed to you. You can't get it at the DMV anymore.
Right.
And so when you go to get your license, you get your picture taken, then they mail you the new license.
Yeah.
But it gets mailed to the shelter. One woman said her license had been sent back 3 separate times.
Wow.
And it's hard to get a job if you can't prove your identity because it's one of those things you need.
I never thought of that. Yeah.
So, the reason I was talking to them was talking about, becoming sustaining again so that you could actually get off the street. Because
right.
No one wants to spend the winter on the street.
And it's a real problem around here. Yeah.
And it has, you cannot, day or night, you cannot walk down this street or any of these side roads without seeing all the people camped out.
Right.
And we have shelters in this area. So I wanted to know, how come you're not in a shelter?
Right.
1, they're full. 2, they have a curfew of 6:30.
Is it that early? Wow.
That's what I was told.
Yeah.
I did not go to the shelter to find out if 6:30 was really the curfew, but they said, but every person that I spoke to did say 6:30, so that's why I didn't question it.
Wow, that's weird to me because what if someone gets a job, they don't have enough money yet to get an actual place to live, so they're working, but they're still in the shelter, but their job doesn't get out.
And if you're walking because you don't have a car yet, and you're walking from any of these retail areas here, you would never make it. Especially since retail businesses are open until much after 6 o'clock, 6:30. So I would think that you would want to support those people who are working as much as possible because the goal is to get them back to being self-sustaining. You can't do that without a job.
Right. And and what do you do if you can't meet that curfew and somebody offers you a job?
End up on the street.
That sucks. Wow.
Yep. So the conversations I had with them were about jobs, being why they weren't in the shelters, the need to be able to take showers in order to have a job,
right?
Those kind of things. Those are what we were talking about.
Wow.
But the reason for that part of the tangent of this conversation was the voter ID law.
Yeah.
And he had told students that he would not support it. And
there's video of him talking to a student about it. I saw that. Yep. And then he signed it.
Yep. And then I have spoken to someone that's on the Cannabis Commission, which he agreed to funding this commission to research legalization of cannabis. Now, when the person told me that they were on this commission, I said, he doesn't support cannabis legalization.
Right. Decrim. He said decrim was as far as he'd go.
The closest we're ever going to get is the decrim bill he signed. He's not supporting legalization. And he said, no. I had a personal conversation with him, and we videotaped it. And he said, now is the time. Now is the time. We're going to do this year.
Right.
And I said, no, he's not going to support legalization. I'm sorry. He said, well, he approved of this commission. I mean, the taxpayers are paying for this commission.
Yeah.
I said, that's probably just to pacify all of those people who wouldn't vote for him if they thought that there was no chance of him voting for legalization. This gives him that chance. I said, it's just a ploy. Well, guess what? Last night in the debates, he came out and said, I will never support it. Even though he told the people on the commission, this is the time, let's do it. So that...
Yeah.
And I've listed a couple others on my site where I thanked him for changing his mind on some things. Planned Parenthood is another one that he's flip-flopped back and forth on several times.
But how do you know he won't flip-flop the right way on legalization?
The problem is that you don't know.
You don't know, right.
And he never gives a reason for it. If he came out and said, I spoke to these people, I did some research, I did this, I read this study, and this informed my decision, and so I've had to change my position.
Right.
I would be all for that. I would be in support of that.
Sure.
I would think, wow, a governor who is willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to listen to the people, I would be all for that.
Right.
But instead, he says, no, I've always believed this way. I've always said. But, okay, so there's a video of you just last week on the news saying the complete opposite. Why do you think that we're all stupid and we can't do any research on our own?
Right.
This playing the voter for the fool bothers me, and that's the flip-flopping I don't like.
Yeah, yeah. Because I would think he could be moved on some... Now that we're surrounded by states that have gone full legal and Canada's gone full legal, I can imagine him... being moved in the right direction, but he said never.
He said last night,
wow.
Nope, not going to do it.
Okay. Have you been able to participate in any debates, or have you been completely shut out?
I was excluded.
Now,
we did have a protest last night, and what I did afterwards is I went to.
Actually, Jilletta, not to interrupt you, but we have a call, so let's grab this. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed in the Afternoon. Who's this?
Hi, Matt. This is Karen, Ben Dion's aunt. How are you?
Oh, hey, Karen. Good. How are you doing?
Good. I have a question for your guest.
Yes, go ahead.
Ben is very interested in politics, and he is very much so for everybody getting out to vote, but also to be informed when they go out to vote, regardless of whether Republican, Democrat, or Libertarian, that they know who they're voting for. And I have to be honest, I really don't know much about the Libertarian Party. But listening to Jilletta, I'm very interested in the points that she's been making. But I do have a question. As a governor from the Libertarian Party, how do you work with the government that's either going to be Republican or Democrat? How do you bring them all together to get things done when you don't have a connection to either side?
That's a great question.
Well, one of the things that you need to do once you become governor is you need to stop saying, I am this party, I am that party, because you have to represent every single person in the state, regardless of their affiliation. Because you're not really there to represent your party so much as you're there to represent the people. Or at least I would hope that every governor would feel that way, that really you're there for the people. Mm-hmm. And that means working with everybody that those people have voted into place. Now, my job for the last many years has been project management, where I have taken executives into a room and I have sat them down and I have had them start the conversation completely in disagreement.
Sure.
Their department was the most important department. Their branch of was the most important. Their country was the most important. And by that end of that meeting, they were ready to reach a goal together and work together to do it. And it was my job to make sure that we were working together to accomplish a goal. Because in the end, every person who's being elected is there to represent the people. And if they can't work towards the goals of the people, then they shouldn't be in that office to begin with.
Right, right. What do you think, Karen?
Right. I think in theory that's great, but I think in political temperament, I wish I could say that would happen, but I haven't seen it. On all the years that I've been alive, I haven't seen it. I mean, they're like, once they get elected, this is my party's idea. They go and they vote for a party and not really listen to the people.
Yeah,
I hear what you're saying.
That would be a hard thing for you to get accomplished. I think it would be fantastic.
Yes.
But I think it would be difficult.
Well, I think one big difference would be that I wouldn't be either a Republican or a Democrat.
You don't owe anybody anything.
So I don't owe elite. So they can't say, oh, you're just siding with the Republicans, or, oh, you're just siding with the Democrats, because I'm neither. So having that third voice in there could be the uniting factor.
Right. Right, because it's almost like you're an objective arbiter.
Exactly.
You're not someone who, you don't owe anybody anything. You don't have to be beholden to somebody else's ideology.
Yep.
You know, you're not playing for a team. You're working for the people.
Yep.
Yeah.
So my next question for you is, do you have a website? Because as I said, I don't know much about you, but I would like to find out before I go out and vote.
I absolutely do. I have a website and a Facebook page. My website is JILLETTA Jarvis. That's Jilletta Jarvis. The number 4 nh.com. And then on Facebook, you can find me at Jarvis, the number 4 GOV, Jarvis for Gov.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much, and I wish you the best. And Benjamin will be thrilled with me because I am going to go more informed when I go vote.
Excellent.
Well, thank you and Benjamin.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, Karen, thanks so much for the call. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, Karen is she's the aunt of Ben Dion, who hosts. You might be familiar with his show, or maybe not. He hosts the weekly Dion Thursdays at 6, right after me. By the way, hello to Chuck Gosson, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. And Jenny clarified something from earlier when she said she agreed. She was talking about same-sex marriage.
Oh.
When she was a state rep, she fought here as a Republican, she fought to prevent the repeal of same-sex marriage, and she did some work in D.C. As well. The number to call is 603-250-6007 if you'd like to enter the conversation. It's Friday, so we wrap up a little bit early, so we're here for about another half hour or so. And give us a call, 603-250-6007, or you can also chime in the Facebook Live. Yeah, so you have actual experience working with people and making deals and whatnot. I feel like, I feel like you not being a Republican or a Democrat, I think that's an advantage in a situation like that. I also think, too, I mean, libertarianism, just like there's factions with the Republicans and there's factions with the Democrats, you have that with libertarianism as well. And you, to me, sound like a very reasonable, and I get the impression that this is how you impress Karen as well. You sound like a very reasonable libertarian, because within libertarianism, of course, you have, for example, the anarchists who just want to burn it all down, basically, and have no government whatsoever, and just want to get rid of everything. Oh, hello to Chris Rose in the Facebook live chat. But to me, I think libertarianism, the way I've always perceived it, really kind of it's not this fringe thing like anarchy is. It's really kind of occupies the middle between liberalism and conservatism in a lot of ways.
I consider it definitely a moderate party out of the three, that we are the moderates.
Yeah.
And I think that we appeal to both sides because of that. And that's one of the reasons I think that having a libertarian governor would be good, because we can see both sides of that spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we want you to have your social freedoms, we also want you to have your money in your pocket, not in the government bank account.
Right.
So we can see both sides and thus be able to communicate with both sides.
Right. Yeah, because so often I've heard people say, and I'm sure you've heard it too all the time, is people say, well, I don't know what party to I don't fit in with either party. I'm socially liberal, I'm fiscally conservative, and it's like, well, you sound like a libertarian then, really.
Yeah.
So has it been difficult to kind of gain? Well, I guess what I'm really trying to ask is there a support system in terms of, obviously, if you're a Republican or a Democrat and you're on the ballot, you've got this whole party apparatus that's behind you. With libertarians, it seems like, obviously there is such a thing as a, whatever they call it, a state libertarian party, but are they able to support you in your bid for governor, or is it kind of scattershot? Or because I get the impression there's not a lot of organization in terms of, partly because libertarians are fighting over who's more libertarian and who's being libertarian the right way, and you've got the anarchists who think unless you're an anarchist you're not a real libertarian. So is there a support mechanism, or Or are you just kind of on your own in this, doing this?
Well, we do have support in our state party and in our national party. It's not financial support. It is more of a, you can do this. I'm behind you.
right, yeah.
But where people have the time, have the availability, we're a very voluntaristic type of people.
Yeah.
We believe in volunteering. We believe in helping to make things work. So there are a lot of people who want to be there. I have people who are in the National Party who reach out to me and say, what can I do? Well, unfortunately, you're pretty far away, so I don't think you can go door knocking for me. But
right.
How about getting on the phones for me? How about helping me to create some posts, some letters, that kind of thing? And they're willing to do that. How about helping me with some technical knowledge on my website? I've had people all over the country help with that. And then here in the state, obviously last night we had our debate protest because of the fact that I wasn't included. We had 36 people sign up to come out. We ended up not with that many people, but we had a great many people come out, make signs, show up and stand there and be supportive and demand that every person have the right to hear all of their candidates, because it shouldn't be up to a media source to decide who you get to hear and who you don't.
Right.
So we do have that type of a network where we work to promote each other as best as we can. The issue, of course, is that we are a small group and we are scattered all over the state. So, traveling 3 hours to do a sine wave for an hour or two may not be the best use of someone's time.
Yeah.
And all of our most active participants are also running for office. So they're all very busy right now as well.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But I mean, I had party members there doing my live feed, doing the filming, doing, there was someone there watching the actual debate in the other room so that they could text the questions over to the person who was the moderator so that we could get that information, because we were having to get it kind of secondhand since we weren't actually at the debate.
Right.
So we had that. Again, that was our network of volunteers out there working to support each other.
Yeah. Did something happen with Channel 9 where they were going to let you in and then change their mind or something? I only ask because do you know Dave Ridley from the Ridley Report?
Yes, I've met him.
He hasn't called in lately. He goes in spurts. Like he'll call like every day for like a month, and then I won't hear from him at all for a while. But yeah, he had called in one day about that and said something about that. Something had happened with Channel 9.
Okay, so before the primary, both myself and Mr. Day were given the opportunity to do a 20-minute recorded interview. Unlike our opponents who all received live feed interviews. And the reason why, according to Mr. Sexton from WMUR at the time, was that we only had 267 registered voters, so it wasn't worth their time to do anything more.
Statewide? 267?
267. But it was the first time. Most people still didn't even know you could register as a libertarian.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, a lot of our voters still list themselves as independent. They don't want to be burdened down by a label. A lot of libertarians do not like labels.
Right.
They believe in the philosophy, they believe in the principles, but they don't want to be labeled.
Well, and actually, a lot of people who vote Democrat or Republican are the same way.
Thing.
Yeah.
So after that interview, I stopped and I said, so I am qualified for the primary debate. According to the criteria that you have listed, I am qualified. I have met every single one of your criteria. And yet I still haven't seen an invitation to the debate. So I'm just wondering what's happening. And he said, again, you don't have enough voters, So we're not holding a primary debate for you. We're just not doing it. I said, okay. All right. We had a long discussion about it. I won't say all of that conversation because I don't want to say anything mean. But he said to me afterwards, he goes, don't worry. Whichever one of you wins the primary, you will be invited to the general debate.
Okay.
And I said, oh, we will. And he said, yes. So I said, okay, as long as we are part of the general debate, because we've gone through the primary and whoever wins, whichever one of us it is, gets to go on to the okay, that's fine. And I let it go. And Aaron Day asked the same question and was told the same thing.
Okay.
That whichever one of us won, we would be invited.
Was this all verbal? Was any of this in an email?
No, it was all verbal while we were standing there.
Okay.
And so when the tricky thing is that the day before the criteria for the general debate was announced, and there really should never have been any criteria.
Right.
You've had to go through a primary already. People have already chosen you.
Right.
The winner.
Exactly.
There's only 3 people possible for all 3 of those races. There were only 3 people. You mean to tell me that 1 minute extra for each question couldn't have happened?
Right.
But whatever. So the day before the criteria was posted, my staff, my campaign manager, received a call. I know that congressional candidate Justin O'Donnell, he received a call. I don't know about congressional candidate Dan Belforti, but I know that Justin and my team received a call asking us how much money we had raised so far.
Okay.
And we said, well, we've been largely self-funded, so we really haven't been doing a lot of fundraising.
Yeah.
But this is how much money we've raised. And the next day, the criteria was posted saying that we had to raise $25,000 by October 19th.
Just move the goalposts.
Which was
yep. That's what they
3
do.
weeks away.
Yeah.
I was like, you have got to be kidding.
Yeah. Wow.
We raised enough that all we had needed was $9,000 more.
Yeah.
And in 3 weeks, that's a pretty impressive feat, especially since in New Hampshire, we raised more than any other libertarian gubernatorial candidate in this state in history.
Really?
It didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
We were excluded.
Yeah.
But I knew we were going to be. There
Really?
was
Yeah.
no way they were going to invite us. And they can come up with all the excuses that they want to, that it was not worth their airtime because there aren't enough registered voters or because you're not rating high enough in the polls. But here's the thing. If you create a situation where you refuse to give interviews, you refuse to publish a press release, you refuse to acknowledge the existence of a third person whenever you talk about the other 2, you're creating the environment where people don't know enough about that third person. You know, when in 2016,
it becomes a cycle. Yeah.
In 2016, when Gary Johnson was running for president, he was running as a libertarian with Governor Weld from Massachusetts as his vice presidential running mate. And he had announced his running pretty early.
Yeah.
And then he won the nomination of the party. And then in September, I heard people saying, oh, those libertarians think they can jump into the race at the very last minute. I'm like, last minute?
Right.
He's been running the whole time.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But it's because that's when they finally heard about them.
Right.
And there are so many people who tell me now, I can't believe I just found you.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I've been running. I was the first candidate to declare.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
I sent out a press release to every media that I could find a contact information for. We sent out video of my announcement. We sent out everything.
Yeah.
It didn't get announced until Steve Marchand announced a couple weeks later, and it was at the bottom of the press release from him, also running, is that Steve Marchand gets a head start on running. And at the bottom, also announced is.
Right.
And we're like, what?
Yeah.
That's the kind of news feed we were getting.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Of course, the polls didn't show us as very high because they refused to take any of the notices we sent them.
Yeah.
We would send them where we were going to be. We would send them what we were going to be doing. We'd send them stories. We'd send them articles. We'd send them facts and figures. We'd send them photos. We'd send them videos. We'd send them. We'd ask them, what is it that you want that we can give you? And we still wouldn't get replies. So
yeah. Well, it's, I mean, it's mainstream corporate media. It's part of that. It's part of the system, and the system protects itself.
If I was a member of a different party, you've got a candidate who is female, who is the only female gubernatorial candidate in her party in the entire country, who has in today's issues, I have a father who was murdered in a gun-free zone by a criminal with a gun.
Oh, wow.
Victim of sexual assault. I had to go through losing a child. A doctor's telling me I should get an abortion.
Wow.
I've had to go through every single topic that the people are talking about right now.
Yeah.
I have personally had to go through.
Yeah.
Any other party.
I know. It's true. It's very true. Jenny, by the way, she's showing some support in the Facebook live chat. She said it is wrong to silence their voices. The press shouldn't have the right. How do we fix that? Also, hello to Derek Evan Relaford, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. Matt Dido is in there. Hi, Matt. I haven't talked to him in a long time. Ed Murphy is in there as well. Yeah, it really, like I said, it's corporate media. They're part of, I call it the corporatocracy. I didn't invent the term, but I use it a lot. You've got the two-party system, and you've got the corporate media that helps keep the two-party system, the two-party system. And you rarely see any deviation from that. I've always given, you mentioned Gary Johnson's candidacy in 2016. For the past couple of years, I have given a lot of credit to MSNBC, only because they're the one cable news network that during the 2016 presidential campaign actually did give a considerable, of course, Gary Johnson ended up stepping in it at every opportunity. I was very frustrated with him. I still voted for him, but I was frustrated with him. But they gave a lot of opportunity to Gary Johnson and to Jill Stein, because there was this, because we had a Republican and a Democrat who were so unpopular and who had such high negatives that this seemed like a great opportunity for.
It could have been.
Yeah.
It really could have been a great opportunity for every news center to say, all right, so instead of just saying Trump, 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 Trump as a complete sentence,
right?
Maybe they could have been talking about all of the different candidates who were running. There was a constitutionalist running.
Yeah.
There was obviously, you said green and libertarian. There were we had 5 minor parties that were running in 2016. Only Gary Johnson and Jill Stein made it to all of the ballots. Actually, I don't know that Jill Stein actually made it to all 50 ballots.
Yeah, I'm not sure she did.
I know that Johnson
but he
did.
He definitely did, yeah.
So in that situation where he's made it to every single ballot, he should have been in the debates.
I was hoping. And then.
But we exclude.
I know.
We don't allow. We make the choice for the people every time we exclude someone who's on their ballot.
Yeah.
We tell you, you are not mature enough, adult enough, or intelligent enough to make decisions for yourself. So we're going to help you out by narrowing it down to 2 choices and telling you that in order for you to have more choices than that, we would have to change the Constitution and scaring you.
Right.
But nowhere in the Constitution does it tell you that you should only have 2 choices.
Of course
As a matter of fact, when the Constitution was written, there was no such thing as a party.
Right.
And General George Washington, after he became president, and they asked him about parties, he said to them, and I'm going to have to paraphrase because I can't remember the exact quote, but if you create parties,
He
you
warned
will
us.
divide this country
Yep.
at a time when we need to unify. And he was an incredibly intelligent man. So intelligent, in fact, that we can see his words echoing through history to today.
Oh, yeah.
Where it has been constantly eroding the fabric of our social society throughout time, and it only gets worse each year.
Oh, yeah.
If I had my way, we'd get rid of, at least at the state level,
Yeah.
get rid of parties altogether.
Oh,
Vote
yeah.
on the candidates.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Then you couldn't do this straight ticket. Oh my gosh, I can't vote for a Democrat because then this will happen. I can't vote for a Republican because
Right.
then this will happen. Just vote for the candidate that's the best,
Right.
regardless of what party they're in.
Right, exactly.
I've voted for Democrats. I've voted for Republicans.
Oh, me too, yeah.
I've voted for independents, and I've left spaces on my ballot blank
Oh, yeah, yeah.
when I just could not find a person that I was willing to even write in for that job.
Yeah,
It just wasn't worth it.
yeah.
But be informed about your candidates. As Karen was talking about earlier, be informed about all of your candidates and pick the right one. And don't let people scare you into voting for their choice.
Right.
I have people constantly saying, oh, if someone votes for you, they're voting for the Democrat. And then I have a person on the same thread on my Facebook page saying, oh, if you vote for her, you're giving it to the GOP so that they can win.
Right,
Like,
right.
Well, which one is it?
Oh, I went through that, in 2016. Because I supported Gary Johnson, and all my Republican friends would say, "Oh, a vote for him is really just a vote for Hillary," and all my Democrat friends would say, "Oh, a vote for him is really just a vote for Trump." And
because you can't scare people into voting your way.
Yeah.
If you aren't scaring them into thinking that, oh, the worst possible thing is voting for the people I don't like.
Right, yeah. So,
it has nothing to do with what you want.
Exactly.
It has to do with what they want.
Exactly.
And so whatever it is that they want, they are trying to scare you into voting in their way.
Oh, yeah.
They don't care about what you want. And every time someone uses fear to try to sway your vote,
it's a great motivator.
They don't care about you.
Yep. I agree. Jenny in the Facebook live chat says, I care if what you say is what you do, not what party you're in.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think, too, part of the reason why people are so comfortable with the two-party system is it really kind of, you talked about you should know the candidate. You should learn about the candidate. And I think when you have a two-party system and you pick a team that you can play for and then just go along with whatever, you kind of, it relieves a lot of the responsibility for learning about the candidates and also learning about the issues. You can, because you don't really have to know anything about the issues if okay, well, this particular herd that I've chosen to run with takes this position and that position. So I guess that's what I believe, too.
Well, if that was always going to be the truth, they wouldn't have terms like rhino and I don't know what the equivalent is in the Democratic Party. But you can run in whatever party you want to. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to follow the platform of that party.
Right.
So they're just hoping that you will vote straight ticket and not care about the fact that their policies, their platform do not align.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, all of the parties have this issue. Every single one.
Yeah.
We're not immune to it.
Right. Oh, yeah. Like I was saying earlier, I mean, there's a lot of infighting among libertarians about, who's libertarian enough. And do you run into that at all? Or
I have been told by one person only.
Oh, good.
That I am not
only one
libertarian. I am not a true libertarian.
Yeah.
But otherwise, people from all factions have supported me in the Libertarian Party here in the state. So
yeah. I remember hearing that a lot about Gary Johnson. A lot of people I know personally would say, "Oh, he's really just What did I hear one person say? It's being a moderate Republican doesn't make you a libertarian or something like that." And, but there were other issues with Gary Johnson. But is this? We're almost out of time. Is this your first time running for office?
No, I actually tried to run as an independent in 2016, but due to having people signed petitions in green ink, a street that got renumbered after people had registered to vote, so their signature address didn't match their registered address. I had too many names that got thrown away, so I didn't make it onto the ballot. But I did campaign the whole time. It was very sad.
Yeah. Oh, well. Well, so you're doing better this time.
I've definitely done better this time.
You're on the ballot, and
I won the primary.
Yeah.
Against a nationally known individual.
That's true.
So
there you go.
I take pride in that, and he was a nice man, so no hard feelings between us.
Do you think, by the way, I don't know if you want to speculate about this or not, and I'm just speculating. I'm not making any kind of an accusation, but do you think it's possible that the Sununu campaign itself had anything to do with keeping you out of the debate? And the only reason I ask is it just seems like they have more to lose by you being in, because you are more likely to siphon votes from him than from Molly. Oh my God, I can't. What is her last name? Molly Kelly. Yeah.
Except for that, if you looked at my primary results, I actually pulled more votes from the Democrats
than
I did from the Republicans.
Well, that doesn't completely surprise me, because I've always said if you go issue by issue, I think libertarianism tends to intersect with liberalism just as much as with conservatism on the issues. But I also feel like the general perception is, probably because in this state, a lot of libertarians run as Republicans, very few run as Democrats. So that surprises me. You pulled more votes from Democrats in the primary.
I did. I pulled, because if you look at the write-ins, because again, we had to look at write-ins to see where we really stood.
Yeah.
We were written in on Republican tickets and on Democratic tickets, and I had more people who passed in a Democratic ticket with my name on it
I'll be damned.
than I did Republicans.
That's interesting.
And Aaron Day had more people who wrote his name in on a Republican ticket.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. Well, we are just about out of time. On Fridays, we wrap up a little bit early because Rob comes in to do Granite State of Mind at 6, and he has live musicians come in and play. They need time to set up and whatnot. But this has been great. You've been very generous with your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been wonderful. And before we wrap up, I do want to make sure you remind everybody about your website and anything else they should know social media-wise and whatnot. The election is coming quick, so we want to make sure people know.
So on Facebook and Twitter and on Instagram, I am Jarvis, Jarvis, 4, and then GOV, Gov, so Jarvis for Gov. And my website is Jilletta Jarvis for New Hampshire. That's JILLETTA, Jarvis, JARVIS, 4, and then NH.com. My email and my campaign phone number are both listed on the website and Facebook page, so please feel free to contact us. We're happy to answer your questions.
Excellent. By the way, does the spelling of your first name get butchered a lot in the media?
Yes.
I kind of figured. Because it's 2 L's and 2 T's, right?
It's Jill and Etta. It's like a compound, 2 different women's names compounded into one. Though it's actually a Scandinavian name. It's
no kidding.
All by itself.
No, that's a good way to remember it, though. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, Jilletta, this has been awesome. I wish you good luck. And anybody listening, if you missed any part of today's show, it'll be up in just a little bit at WMNHradio.org. And thank you to Karen for calling in earlier. Thank you to everybody in the Facebook live chat. And I'm gonna. Maybe this will send some positive energy to your campaign, Jilletta. I'm going to leave you with Alice Cooper. You can probably guess the song. Can you guess the song I'm going to play?
Would it be what's the name of it? With Jokers to the left of us? Not that
no,
one?
that's not Alice.
Oh,
no.
I like that one though.
Oh,
I don't know which one is it.
Elected.
Oh,
what else?
Fabulous choice.
Yes. So I'll leave you with that, and thank you, everybody. I'll be back on Monday for another Matt Connarton Unleashed here on WMNH 95.3 FM, and I will talk at y'all a little bit later. Bye, everybody.
I'm your choice. I wanna be elected. I'm Yankee Doodle always been cool. I wanna be elected. I helped you get the vote, and I told you about school.